Good day, Tesla fans. Another FSD video for you. 10.69.25.2. Like other beta testers, we're just still waiting for that nice, new, shiny version 11 patch. But until that day comes, we're rocking this one still. Today, I'm just going to let the Tesla and FSD do whatever it wants to do. No trying to manipulate it to stay off the highways. Nothing like that. With version 11 coming up soon, I want to start adding Navigate on Autopilot into my routes so I can start to kind of compare between version 11 and the full stack and the removal of Autopilot with what we have now, with the kind of FSD on the side streets and Autopilot on the highways. And yeah, hopefully it's a vast improvement. That's kind of the promise that we're led to believe now. But until that day comes, here we are, and here we go. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but from my past videos, I mean, there's a lot less snow going on now. Springtime is starting to come here in Quebec and Ottawa, capital of Canada. So snow levels have dropped a bunch, but that also means that we're getting the huge concentration of all the salt on the roads used, all present, entire winter's worth on the roads now. So the lines are getting really chalky, if you will, and hard to see. So it's always interesting to kind of look at the display and to see what Tesla is able to pick up. I mean, there's a lot of times where I can't even see the lane markings, but Tesla is still putting it up there. It looks like it's inferring based on surrounding traffic. It's still pretty impressive to see that I can navigate with no lines going on to tell it where to go and what lane to be in. Situations like this too, where we're getting heavy glare from the front, so you just know that the front camera is being shined on brightly by the sun, plus the glare of the melting snow. Difficult conditions, to say the least, for you know, self-driving technology. We're gonna be making a left here. Ideally, I'd like to see the Tesla kind of skirt around to get into its lane, but the funny enough, Tesla in front of us is very off to the left and kind of blocking our full lane. That's just kind of one of those things in Canada. As you kind of get snow coming out, you start to lose a bunch of drivable space. But the Tesla did it safely, and it was always good to see. Interesting turn here as we have a pedestrian walking across. You can see that they're marked in blue, so very hyper attentive to what is blue on the displays. And as they go gray and everyone else goes gray, then they make their turn. Getting a honk here. I didn't like what those people were doing. The car coming head into us was supposed to turn and had the right of way. They were waiting for that person, which stopped us from making the turn, which was the correct decision. Person behind us didn't like it, but we did it safe. Carrying on. So we have an interesting turn coming up here. It's interesting even on the best of scenarios as a human driver. So we'll see how the Tesla handles it. it needs to make this right-hand turn and then quickly cross probably 2-3 lanes, and for it to be able to get on the highway. So a lot of time, even me just driving, it can be interesting and difficult to do that. Let's see if FSD is up to the task. All right, so it made the turn. It needs to go all the way left and keep going. Well done. I mean, it made the turn, then got all the way into the right, and needed to come all the way to the left. It forced itself to cross more lanes than it needed to, but hey, it did it. So carrying on. So now we're going to see the kind of transition from FSD, the hyper detailed driving, to now autopilot, navigate on autopilot. So it's merged properly. We're hitting, you know, kind of the beginning of rush hour traffic here in the Ottawa area. You can see how it's throwing the chevrons onto the opposing lane, which is a nice touch to kind of identify that the lane next to you is going much slower than you are. So it's nice to see that the Tesla's picking up on that. It is eventually going to have to make a left-hand turn, or turn left into one more lane, as this lane, I believe, is going to come to an end. So we'll see when Tesla wants to prioritize that, or if it even does do it. It should be wanting to look for a gap now. This lane will highlight blue when it's quote-unquote looking for a gap. I would love to see it now. Yeah, you can see the lines saying that this is a left-hand turn. So you gotta get over to the left here, Tesla. It's not gonna do it. All right, I'm gonna take over here. Get over in this lane and re-engage. So I have no doubt, I mean, from past videos, if it hadn't made that turn, then it would have kind of rerouted itself, got off the highway, eventually corrected itself. But I mean, that would have clogged up a bunch of time for it to make all this loop-de-loop, off-ramp, on-ramp stuff. So we're just not going to do that. Now that I know that that is kind of the behavior at that section of the road around this time of day, it'd be interesting to see now moving forward with version 11, full stack, full self-driving, taking over from this autopilot stuff, on if it does stay in that lane or not, if that behavior is corrected. And I will say, one of the great advantages of even just basic autopilot without any of the FSD upgrade is this scenario right here. This kind of gridlock traffic, if you will. This is where it shines. You really do not have to pay attention at all. It'll just drive you. It'll adjust speeds. It'll change lanes. Yes, you do have to pay for the advanced autopilot to have the lane change capabilities, but even without that, this is just so much better than having to do it yourself. Here's another scenario for me that I'm familiar with at this section of the highway with just the navigate on autopilot, is it knows it has to change lanes here to get off. So it does, and then in the past, yeah, like it's doing now, it attempts to get back in the left lane again. So it was incorrect. It was correct for it to get in this left lane ahead of time. But then why did it, to get in the right lane ahead of time, but then now why did it get back in the left lane with only 1.2 kilometers left? And then what it would do in the past, and probably it'll do it again, is just the last minute it's going to try and get over to the right. So poor kind of predictive planning that's giving its own self a headache for no reason, putting challenges on itself that it really didn't need to do. And now we kind of have a car that's probably going to block it from trying to do its last second lane change. But we'll see if it does it. It's kind of slowed down in anticipation, it looks like. Yeah, so there we go. So with like a good 150 meters, it decides to make the proper lane change, which is, to me, uncalled for. No need to put that much stress on the system. As you can see, we've switched from autopilot back to the full self-driving now. A lot more detailed. All the fancy red and yellow lines everywhere. And yeah, carrying on. So same kind of scenario here where, you know, it's got 700 meters left before it needs to make a right turn. I would love to have seen it get into the right turn in preparation for that much earlier than now. Now it's kind of forced itself again into a difficult situation with traffic in the other lane. It's got to find its gap. Yeah, we have cars behind us, so are we going to slow down in order to do that? And therefore we're impeding the traffic behind us to make this maneuver. I mean, needless, right? All of that could have been avoided if it just made its lane change much easier, or much sooner, right? So again, we got 200 meters to make this turn. Tesla needs to not only now change lanes, but get into, is it gonna do it? I mean, it's crossing double white lines to make it happen. I mean, look how late it chose to make that turn or to get into that lane. It did it, luckily, I would say, that nothing too complex else was happening there, that I could do that. But yeah, I mean, in the end, it did it. Again, with the super late lane changes, it knew it had to get in the left turn. There was a left turn lane there, and I mean, halfway past where even the left turning lane had opened up, it chose to, you know, brake hard and get into that lane last second. Had anybody behind us also been trying to make that turn, they would have snuck in right beside us, and we would have been blocked to make that turn that we wanted to. So something I would love to see worked on in the future for sure is the forecasting, or better forecasting and predictive nature that a turn needs to happen, and getting into the proper lane well in advance and staying in that lane. unlike what we saw on the highway there, right, where it was gone into the lane with a great amount of time, but then got back into the wrong lane, and yeah, just weird. It's interesting. It's seeing like ghost cars and reacting to the ghost cars, and then speeding up to compensate, and we had a little bit slip, and then we had to kind of take over, slip from the snow. But I mean, here we are. We've reached our destination, and that's it for that drive there. Kind of a little feedback of what we just saw. I mean, it was a great drive. No kind of takeovers except for when we were on autopilot on the highway, and it was not getting over the lane, and thus would have taken us off the highway. We would have had to do the on-ramp, off-ramp thing to get back on the highway if I'd let it go. So other than that, like I've touched on in this entire video, I would love to see it stay or get in the proper lane much sooner. I am on aggressive mode, I guess they call it, when it comes to lane changes and stuff like that. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I mean, if you're only doing last 50 meters, I mean, that's a bit too aggressive in my books. But yeah, no takeovers whatsoever, so I'm happy with that drive. What are these people doing? God, people are crazy. All right, yeah, with that being said, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one.